Alrighty, we've got a league match here for the I division of the Dominion League between Elboy522 and TSchuf. So both of them have 2 matches left to go, so a lot up in the air. Elboy looks to be in a good spot for promoting up to whichever letter comes before I in the alphabet. I believe that is H division or tier. But, 2 matches left. They got to win at least 5.5 across those 2 matches. I think, they win the tiebreaker if they do. Meanwhile, TSchuf is trying to avoid demotion here, so needs some good wins in these next 2 matches to get out of the bottom 2, or else they shall demote. So, what do we got for our first kingdom? This looks money-ish to me, I think. Well, Actually, I'm not sure about that. So there's no thinning whatsoever, which is the big limitation. And we got some pretty decent money cards here. Like Gear is a good money enabler, Haggler, Horde all jump out to me. I think you could reasonably just play with, 2 gears and a Haggler or something. Or maybe 3 gears and a Horde. Something like that would be, I think, a pretty good distribution. That being said, I don't think it is ridiculous to build here. Silos is pretty good sifting. Use Seaway gears, buy some merchant camps and do merchant camp gear, and then build up to a bank megaturn. I don't know if that's in time, but that seems competitive. I could totally see merchant camp gear into bank megaturn beating the money deck. What do we got for the opening? Elboy opens Fisherman Merchant Camp. I do not like that opening one bit. TSchuf opens Cardinal Merchant Camp, also strongly dislike. And the reason is Merchant Camp. Merchant Camp is when you don't need the village effect yet. Like if you don't need plus action, which they obviously can't because it's the opening and they don't have multiple terminals in their deck. This is effectively a copper that gives you the option to top deck a copper, which why would you want either of those things? And so, Merchant Camp is absolutely very bad opening buy. You're effectively just like adding a copper to your deck, which is not helping you do anything that you really want to do. I think plausible openings, again, this might depend on what you're building towards, whether you're trying to build the engine or just play money. Double gear is the thing that immediately jumps out to me. Gear supplies or fisherman gear would be okay. It should involve gear. Gear is just a really good card. Maybe gear silos even could be a thing. Turn 3, TSchuf by silos. That seems totally reasonable. Okay, what's in TSchuf's bottom cards? So they probably want to discard 4 coppers here, I would think. Oh wait, what? They got silos and they chose not to discard. Well, they got a good draw anyway. But my line of thinking is the only cards they have of value, or actually the only card they have of value is that Cardinal, which was in their discard, and so I think they wanted to trigger that shuffle to potentially get back around to it. Okay, so Elboy's got Seaway on Fisherman. That seems totally reasonable. Yeah, just because you can top deck it doesn't mean that you should top deck it. Like, you don't need this merchant camp in your hand or in your deck really, but especially not in your hand. It is literally just a copper at the moment. So, for example, right here, I believe there's 2 total terminals in there. That's true. It is worse than copper because copper you can at least silos away. There's two total terminals across their 2 decks, which is the 2 cardinals TSchuf has. But TSchuf knows that they can't have both. No, dang it, they did it again. They know that they couldn't possibly have both cardinals in this upcoming hand because they had one of the cardinals in play at the moment. Why isn't my computer charging? Come on. That's no good. There we go. Alright, I am back. Can y'all still hear me? My computer unceremoniously departed for a moment and had to be resuscitated. The best sounds. Alright, let's see what's going on here. What have I missed? So it seems like Elboy has grander ambitions here, which is like they got Seaway, which you need plus buy, presumably if you're building. I mean, you honestly could maybe make use of plus buy in the money deck because you can buy supplies, which is really cheap and not a bad card. But they got plus buy and they got bank, which suggests to me that they're trying to build to like a bigger engine thing. But that being the case, they are severely lacking in draw. The engine just wants all the gears, all of them, because you got a bunch of junk. The coppers and the states, you can't trash them, but what you can do is set them aside with gear each turn to keep them out of the shuffle, which is essentially thinning your deck. And so like that's what the engine wants to do, is just play lots of merchant camps, lots of gears, and set aside all those cards. And then get like, I don't know, 3 banks, and then do a quad province turn or something. I don't believe in the cardinal attack. I don't think it is nearly significant enough to matter. I mean, like, it's not a terrible card, but it's a terminal card, and that's terminal space you could be using for something else. If you're not building a big deck, which TSchuf does not seem to be aiming at, just given the composition of their deck, then you probably don't be adding merchant camps because it's just a copper. You want to play with fewer terminals, and that limited terminal space could certainly be used better on gear or even haggler. Would be good money cards. I'm just going to control F top decks a merchant camp, and I know it's going to be very sad. Alright, they have in total top decked a copper 10 times between them. Oh boy. You think, like, after the first few they'd realize, like, oh look, this card just keeps ending up in my hand every single turn and it's useless every single time. Maybe I should stop doing this. But no. Probably just Duchy here, I would think. Yeah, TSchuf would definitely play in money. That seems pretty clear. And, like, this is a kingdom where that's totally viable. Man, I wish they had more gears. Have I mentioned yet how good of a card gear is? I don't think I mentioned that enough. It's great for money. It's great for engines. In money decks, it's really good at hitting exact price points where you overdraw to like 9 or 10. You set aside the extra money so you have more money to hit 8 again next turn. You underdraw. You only hit like 6 or 7. You set aside as much money as you can to guarantee you hit 8 the next turn. That's lovely. Also, in money decks, which are playing with like a few terminals and generally no villages, gear is really nice because it can't really collide with other terminals. Like if you have 2 gears in hand, you just set the other one aside and play it the next turn. So gear is just excellent at hitting like exactly 8 over and over and over. And engines, it's draw, and setting aside stuff is really good because it keeps it out of that shuffle, which is like not having it in your deck in the first place. So a gear that sets aside estates each turn to keep them from being shuffled into your deck is saving you a bunch of draw you'd have otherwise had to use drawing those estates. And so, like in terms of like realistic draw, gear I would consider more draw than Smithy here, just because of that set aside effect. Elboy, you need draw. You need like all the gears, like 3 gears on an arching camp or something. This deck has 0 gears. Oh no, oh no. You don't need those. These fishermen they're like little markets. You just bought a market. You don't need a market. Yeah, supplies would not be bad for the bank mega turn. Supplies is actually, supplies might be better than fishermen, just in general here. The way I think about it is, fisherman is +1 card, +1 action, +1 coin. Supplies is +1 coin, but it doesn't cost an action to play, so also action neutral like fisherman. And while it doesn't give you plus card immediately, it gives you a horse, which is like +1 card. And so supplies and fishermen are very similar cards. You add those to your deck, your deck is essentially no thicker, and it has 1 more coin in it. And so you can think about like fisherman supplies as doing the same thing, just one's in treasure form. The downside of supplies, and why it's cheaper than stuff like Tournament or Peddler, is it's delayed draw. It's like that first time you play it, it's a copper, and then it gives you the draw on the next turn. Whereas Fisherman gives you the draw the turn you play it, and that slight delay is something of a drawback. But the upside that's relevant here that John T. Grizz was pointing out is it's a treasure, which is good for powering up your banks and making them worth a lot. And so, I would be happy to put some supplies in the deck. Like, I wouldn't pass up on Merchant Camp or gear for them, but if I had to spare 2 money, I would definitely buy supplies over nothing. Oh, look at this. This Merchant Camp is going to resolve a terminal collision. Why does TSchuf have a bank? That doesn't make any sense to me. You're not building, are you? I mean, honestly, is either of them building? We've got 1 draw card apiece in each of the decks. Why does either of them have a bank, now that I think about it? Elboy looked like they were going to build, and then they just skipped the part where they did the building. Surely let the Fisherman go. That is literally your only draw card. Even if you don't get it exiled... Oh, no, we've exiled it. Even if you don't exile the Smithy, just the fact that card will flip the Smithy and send it to your discard is huge. Because, again, that's the only draw card in their entire deck. Yeah, I mean, Gear Horde money sounds very threatening to me. I'm still unsure as to whether the engine wins here. But I think if you're playing money, probably 3 gears and a Horde seems like a good distribution. Maybe you end up with 2 Hordes somehow, depending on your draws. And then you just green from there. For the engine, I think that's just the other 7 gears and a bunch of Merchant Camps, and then probably a Smithy or 2. And then you add 3-ish banks. Seaway a gear. It's not even that you particularly need the plus buy. It's just gear is a better card than anything else you can afford for 6 right now. And if you're going to buy gear anyway, might as well make it have plus buy on it. The Horde is reasonable. I didn't notice it was exiled. It seems fine as well. Oh, this Merchant Camp. so much needless self-imposed suffering has occurred as a result of those Merchant Camp openings. From turn 3 onwards, these things have just been an affliction. Does anyone remember? I don't remember the details well enough because I watched this as like a young child. But I remember in one of the episodes of Yu-Gi-Oh, he's dueling a guy who plays like bug type monsters, and one of the bugs like buries itself in your opponent's deck and just like gets in the way, and just like keeps showing up over and over. That's how I feel like these Merchant Camps. Like, if I could buy a Merchant Camp for my opponent and give it to him, make him top deck it every turn, I would happily do that. This looks like it'd be a really good turn from Elboy. Merchant is purple. Merchant's worse than purple. Curses don't top deck themselves. All right. So I'll see what Elboy does here. Yeah. Elboy has no draw cards in their entire deck. TSchuf has a singular gear. Ooh, that's a risky play. I mean, as it turns out, looking at TSchuf's hand, this is going to work out just fine. But, like, you just said, hey, opponent, if you can hit province, I lose. This isn't enough to protect against just them buying the province. So, I probably would have just done, like, double duchy and maybe an estate there. Does an estate matter here? Yes, I think an estate matters. So, like, if TSchuf doesn't buy an estate, then Elboy can buy an estate. And then, if TSchuf provinces the next turn, that's just a tie instead of a win. So, the upside of buying an estate there for TSchuf is you prevent that, which is your opponent buying an estate to stop you from winning. The downside, of course, is they were about to shuffle, and so whatever card you buy there is going back in your deck, and estate is not necessarily a good card to put in your deck, so it's not trivial. Now, from here on out, like, you just shuffled your deck. This game is not lasting 5 more turns. Now you just buy green no matter what, because whatever cards you buy, you've never seen them again. It's like this should just be an estate from TSchuf. Please don't play the merchant camp. Please don't top deck the merchant camp. Please, just for once. All right, I like the estate buy. This is a very friendly cardinal flip. They didn't do it. They didn't top deck it. Huzzah! 3 cheers for TSchuf. Estate. Same deal. We're now just rolling the dice. This definitely favors TSchuf bid at this point. Not the other way around. It favors Elboy bid at this point because TSchuf can't just buy province here. They have to get the estates and buy province. So this will be a duchy. Is this 5 for Elboy? This is 1. Yeah, this is 5 for Elboy. I think it's just a matter of time until Elboy eventually hits 8. Yeah, set copper and estate, I guess. Not that it matters much. They're very friendly Cardinals. I mean, this is part of the problem with Cardinals. It's like a very inconsistent attack. It's annoying, but not strong. Like, I put it on my dislike list just because I don't like it. But it's not like a dangerous card. Oh, no, undo. You didn't mean to do that. Why did you... I mean, it's highly unlikely to matter because, like, how likely are you to get back around to the shuffle? But they just randomly put a duchy into their deck that was in their exile. Why would you want that? The lack of plus buy is actually a little bit painful here for TSchuf because they can't do double duchy or double estate the way that Elboy can. But Elboy keeps top decking this merchant camp, which is... Here's another way that the merchant camp is worse than a copper. Is they both got a bunch of banks in their deck. And so a copper would at least power up the banks that are in your hand. Merchant camp is not doing that. Look how much money this is. 20 money. Oh, if only. And now we buy a duchy with it. This is also a case where, imagine the smithy were a gear. That would be such a better card. Instead of having 20 money, you could set aside like both the golds. I mean, TSchuf still got a chance. I think their deck is much fuller with golds, so maybe they do. Like, Elboy needs to miss duchy at some point, I think. This is not a good draw. Hitting 4 is real bad for TSchuf. They need a duchy here. No, wait, what? Why don't you set aside the copper? I mean, it's not going to matter because you have way too much money in this hand anyway, but they should have set aside a copper. More duchy exiling. Yeah, so I think at this point it's Elboy's game. TSchuf will buy duchy, Elboy will buy duchy, and then there's just not enough points left for TSchuf to come back. Please don't unexile the duchy again. That one, but which one buy saved your life? I don't know which one buy they're talking about. They must be talking about TSchuf's turn 2 merchant camp buy. Because that was the best buy for Elboy's entire game. So they did discard the... Why do you want the duchies in your deck? I don't... Maybe they're confused about how exile works. Like, your exile mat is still your cards for scoring purposes at the end of the game. So if your duchy is in exile, it's still worth 3 points for you. You don't have to unexile it to, like, get the points. All right, game 1 to Elboy. I don't know why we're talking about biting nails. I take offense at that remark. What is an Elboy anyway? Is it Spanish, but like gave up on Spanish halfway through? Switch back to English. Elboy. Maybe it's like a superhero, like a superhero sidekick with elbow-related powers. Like, I'm Elboy, sidekick of the Crimson Chin. Maybe they're fans of Hellboy, but have a Cockney accent when typing. Like, oi, brother. I like Elboy. What have we here? They're not rolling the strongest kingdoms, to be honest. So, I mean, we technically got a village with Way of the Ox. Not a very good one. We technically got draw with Advisor. Again, it's not good draw. And you technically got plus buy with Storeroom, but it's not good plus buy. And you got trashing with Amulet, and I guess count. Amulet's a good trashing. Oh, please don't open potion. You're gonna jinx it. So, I get, if you're trying to build, what's that look like? Probably double Amulet open, get a bunch of advisors, maybe 2 storerooms for plus buy, add a few Fool's Golds, and try to get to double Province, which would involve how many Fool's Golds? You'd play 4 or 5 Fool's Gold to get your double Province. You have to draw 5 of them. Oh my, DC, this is your fault. Oh, not you too, Elboy. Oh no. Now, I don't even know which of these 2 cards do they think is a good card. So we'll start with Transmute. Transmute is terrible. It is one of the worst cards in the game. Like, probably bottom 5. The problem with Transmute is that it's so incredibly slow. You got to buy a potion first, which makes your deck thicker with a junk card. Then you buy a Transmute, which is another junk card on its own, to thin your cards, which is at earliest happening in the 3rd shuffle. But it's not even making you thinner, because every card it trashes, it replaces with another card. Like, you can't thin your coppers, they just turn into Transmutes, which you don't need. You can't thin your victory cards, they just become treasures, and so on and so forth. So it is slow and doesn't do what it's attempting to do, and it's terminal. And it costs the potion. Everything is wrong with it. And yet, it is somehow the better of the 2 potion cards in this kingdom, because the other one is Philosopher's Stone, which is far and away the single worst card in the game. Like, never, ever, ever gainable. The only context, I think, where you'd ever really want Philosopher's Stone is if there's Keep in the Kingdom, the landmark that just gives you 5 victory points for having more of any given treasure. And then, like, oh, I bought a potion for 5 points, and I got a potion. Might as well buy a Philosopher's Stone. Not because it has any value whatsoever, but just because it's worth 5 points. But it is just, like, egregiously terrible. Yeah, I think double Amulet seems like the open no matter what you're doing. If you're not building, I think it probably just looks like double Amulet money. Or maybe 3 Amulets in the long term. You trash a bit, you gain some silvers, and then you buy Province. That deck would work out just fine. Desert Guide's Tide Pools is a kind of an interesting interaction. That's a good point. Yeah, you probably want to play with a few Tide Pools here. Tide Pools plus 3 cards plus 1 action. In general, this card is... I would think of it as like a warehouse of sorts. But just like between one turn and the next, where the turn you play it, it's plus 2 cards. The turn after that, it's minus 2 cards. And so it's like sifting of sorts. But here you got a nice little interaction with Desert Guides, which lets you pitch your hand. So what you can do is play a bunch of Tide Pools one turn, then just discard all your hand from all the Tide Pools, and then after discarding your hand of Tide Pools, use your Desert Guide to just draw 5 new cards. And then you basically got the Tide Pools effect with no drawback. That seems pretty solid to me. Now, the difficult thing here is this costs 1 favor, and the only way to get favors is buying a Sycophant each time, which is like not amazing. But like 1 Sycophant covers 4 turns if you gain it and then trash it later. So that's not so bad. Okay, so we have 3 Transmutes and a Philosopher's Stone gained. Fascinating. What do you even do with this hand? What would I... I don't see anything that looks appealing for TSchuf here. Maybe... No? Huh. I'd probably just... No? Play a Transmute, trash the estate into a gold, and buy a Sycophant. Final answer. I think that's what I would do as TSchuf. Oh, and trash the potion with your amulet. Don't gain a silver with it. Another possible option could be gain silver with amulet, gain copper with count, take 3 money, buy commerce for double gold. We have quite the mix of treasures here, and like not in like an exciting menagerie-esque way. These do not synergize with each other, not one bit. Fool's Gold really wants you to get thin and just have Fool's Golds, because if you're seeing 1 Fool's Gold per turn, as Elboy just did and TSchuf does now, this is just a copper. You bought a fancy blue copper. What you need is to have some level of thinning, and then finding a bunch of Fool's Golds every turn, and then they start to pay off. Like, the more engine-y deck, I think, would look a lot like that, where you get 5 or 6 Fool's Golds, play a bunch of Advisors, and try to get all the Fool's Golds in hand with a Storm or 2. But instead, they're like filling their deck with golds and Philosopher's Stones, and they're not really trashing their coppers. So Fool's Gold is just like adding coppers to this deck. And the problem with Philosopher's Stone is it's just terrible. It's like abysmally, horribly, unimaginably bad. And the fact that 2 of them have been gained is shocking and appalling. What do you do with TSchuf? And you could Province already, but I'm looking at playing the Amulet, I think. I don't even know what to do in this situation. It's just the Wild West of Dominion. We are in strange and uncharted territory. I don't know how to give useful advice to the Transmute Philosopher's Stone Fool's Gold deck. We've revealed the plan all along. The plan was to buy the Fool's Golds to turn them into golds. I don't know if I've ever seen a context where I've used this effect before. The bottom text of Fool's Gold is just something you never, ever, ever do, because if you built a deck full of Fool's Golds, it's because you wanted the Fool's Golds. The Fool's Golds are worth like 4 money each. Why would you trash it to gain a gold, which is 3 money, And why would you take it out of your hand and put it on top of the deck? You could only ever even trigger it once you're in the greening phase. So like it's time to score. So you don't have time to do some long-term buildy-uppy thing. It's like losing a fool's gold from your hand affects you immediately. And there's never a situation where you ever use this effect. Here it like weirdly makes sense just because the fool's gold was already terrible in their deck and shouldn't have been there in the first place. But like supposing you built a deck that should have fool's gold in it, you should just never use that effect because it's hurting you rather than helping you. What do we do as TSchuf? I would have top decked the Fool's Gold, I guess, because you don't need it. Maybe top deck the silver. Buy a sycophant. How has neither of them used their favor once? I don't recall offhand, but I'm going to guess that at least one point in the past 10.5 turns has at least one of these hands not been good for one of these players. So surely you should look at this hand and be like, this is below average for my deck's capacity right now. I should discard it and take a new hand. And apparently that has just never occurred even once. You just here's an example. TSchuf, it was TSchuf. TSchuf did the Fool's Gold. They had 8 in hand. They had a copper, a Fool's Gold, a gold, and then they could have gained a copper or top decked something and then taken 3 from count and bought a province. Now they cannot buy a province because they did this little Fool's Goldy effect thing. Just because that prompt shows up doesn't mean you have to click it. They seem to know that because they never click the Desert Guide prompt. If this play happened like 5 turns ago, I would love it. Trash the potion, trash the transmute, trash the copper, all great. I think we're in the end game already. You don't have time to build a real deck now. That ship has sailed. I would have gained a duchy there. I mean, ideally, I would have not trashed the Fool's Gold and bought a province. But, given that that has occurred, the next best option is top deck the gold, gain a duchy. Or maybe, what did this hand look like? They could have played the transmute, trashed the count into a duchy, and then bought a duchy. I don't remember exactly what the hand looked like. No, because they only had 4 because they trashed the Fool's Gold. That's right. Oh, me oh my. Not sure if a transmuter. Oh, I like that. We did the thing. We used Desert Guides. That was a good time to use Desert Guides. I approve. I'd probably gain a silver and buy Flag Bearer. Duchy also looks reasonable. Go. No. Not gold. Do you go for it here? So obviously trash the Flag Bearer. That is very clear. If you trash the Flag Bearer, you get the flag back, which you want, and you want your opponent to not have. And you've got way more money than you could possibly need anyway, so you don't need the Flag Bearer to be in your hand. Just trash the flag. No. This game, there's 2 provinces left. You're not getting back around to that silver. Why are you? What do you plan to do with the silver? No, just think. If they had the flag, they might have drawn. Oh, that was tragic. Is that 2-0 for Elboy now? 2-1. Okay. I'm trying to remember the games. What were they? There's the gear thing, which Elboy won. And then... Is it 2-1? Now I'm confused. Have they not only played 2 games? I'm terrible at remembering these things. I was under the impression that they've played a total of 2 games. TSchuf making some interesting capitalization decisions. Oh, this looks fun. This looks like a great kingdom. A little bit convoluted, but this is the most potential of any kingdom we've seen so far. So there's dominate, so plenty of points to build to. And there's no plus buy, but plenty of gains. Ironworks can gain things, Upgrade can gain things, Anvil can gain things. I guess technically Rocks can gain things since we're listing them all. Anyways, what are we doing here? Yeah, you got all the stuff you need to build. It'll be a little bit tricky though. So you got Sheepdog for draw, Old Witch for draw, Courtyard for draw. All pretty good draw cards. Courtyard definitely the worst of the three here. Sheepdog is lovely with Ironworks or Upgrade because both of them trigger it. When you play Ironworks, gain something, and then you activate all your Sheepdogs and you draw a big handful of stuff, and that's lovely. So we got all the draw we need. We got Trashing. Catapult's a strong early game trasher. Upgrade's good at trashing. I probably want to open with a Catapult to kill the coppers, get an upgrade soonish to deal with the estates. Thinning will be easy. We said no plus buy, but you can gain a bunch of stuff. So what you're trying to do is spend all your gains, gaining a bunch of these cheap cards, and then eventually get up to buying 1 dominate per turn. That's the goal, is have 14 money in deck, draw your deck, buy dominate, the end. And then lastly, villages. There's only one village here, and that is Throne Room. Throne Room's a good village, but here it's a little bit weird because like you got to use it on like Ironworks or Upgrade or something. But used properly, Throne Room is an excellent village. This is going to be a little bit rickety because you got to line up Throne Room with a non-terminal card. So like a hand that's something like Throne Room, Ironworks, Old Witch. You throw in the Ironworks, gain 2 actions. Now you're at plus 2 actions. And then you can play the Old Witch without drawing stuff dead and play on from there. Or if you had a hand that was like a bunch of Sheepdogs and Ironworks, you could use Ironworks to start drawing. And I think a lot of newer folks struggle with using Throne Room effectively, but it is realistically easily the strongest village in the base set when used appropriately. I think you probably want a decent number of secret passages in this deck because given that you have to kind of line all the stuff up in the right order, like having Ironworks in the same hand as your Sheepdogs and stuff like that, secret passage helps you order your cards in a way that is conducive to not dudding. And so probably at some point you take a decent number of those. So 3-4, I think probably Catapult Ironworks as my initial inclination. The downside of Catapult Ironworks is I would want to hit 5 at some point for Upgrade to deal with the estates. And Catapult Ironworks is not great at hitting 5. So maybe you can consider Catapult Silver as well. It's not super clear. Honestly, like even Courtyard Silver could be reasonable, where you hold off on copper trashing a little bit, get an upgrade in your deck, then you add the catapult and go from there. I think a decent number of options in the opening. Over here in TSchuf's corner, we got 2-5. I think that's probably just Old Witch. If they open just like a Courtyard Upgrade, I think that would also be fine. I probably wouldn't do Courtyard Old Witch because I think those butt heads a little bit, both being terminal draw cards. Anvil Sheepdog to draw treasures. I think Anvil probably doesn't see much play here just because it's a worse Ironworks. You could maybe get an Anvil to gain some silvers. I think I could see that maybe being the way you add payload. But I don't think I'd want it for a bit. Not until I wanted to start getting up to 14. Like, there's going to be a protracted period here where there is going to be absolutely no value in hitting anything greater than 5 because all the cards you could possibly want cost 5 or less, and you only got 1 buy. So there's no value whatsoever having more than 5 money in your deck. And then at some point you're like, oh, actually I need 14 money to buy Dominate. And there's like no in between where having any money in between there is going to help you. And so at some point, once you get deck control, you're just going to ramp up really fast from 5 to 14 money. And that could mean, throning in Ironworks and gaining a bunch of silvers all at once. You could get to 14 money in like a turn or so. And maybe that could involve Anvil at that point. What? Elboy. Elboy, why? Why would you buy a merchant ship? This is the card that kind of like inexplicably still exists because it is one of the worst cards in Seaside, and Seaside just got a new printing. And so I think like everyone expected merchant ship to get cut from Seaside because it is like worse than most of the cards that got cut. As I recall, it survived largely because new players like it, and it's just like the simplest duration card that like kind of captures the essence of durations, which is the core of Seaside. So even though it's terrible, it's like nice and simple. And by contrast, Explorer, which is like a much more playable card, it's more complicated. It doesn't really fit the theme of Seaside as well, and so it got cut. But like, don't mistake Merchant Ship passing to Seaside 2E for it being a reasonable card to ever gain. It is not. You get this card basically never. Honestly, like, you could maybe gain this late in the game. You got some extra 4s. You upgrade a 4 into Merchant Ship as your payload because it's a thrownable 2-coin card. You could do that, but that's like 10 turns from now. Yeah, that's another factor that is relevant for DC. Is there's a new card, Pirate, that is like very similar to Explorer. Rocks would, I mean, again, like, not at this point in the game, but there is a point in the game where Rocks would be a pretty fast way to add payload to your deck, where you like gain a Rocks, trash a Rocks, gain a 5 cost off of it, getting 2 silvers in the process. That'd be fine. Anyways, I'm a little bit lost on what has happened. Oh, I mixed up. I thought Elboy opened with Merchant Ship. Elboy was not the one with the 5-2. TSchuf opened with Courtyard Upgrade, which is, I think, a totally fine opening. I think I would open Old Witch and nothing else, but I think this is a very close second. Totally reasonable as Courtyard Upgrade. Merchant Ship is abysmal. Elboy adds a Courtyard. That's probably better than nothing if you only got 2 money. So far, I like the way TSchuf is playing this more. The one thing I think TSchuf's deck really needs is gainers. Like right now, you got your thinners, you got your upgrade, you got your catapult. Now you just want to be flooding your deck with Ironworks, Throne Room, Secret Passage, Sheepdog, all of those. And so the card TSchuf most needs in their deck at this exact moment is Ironworks. Here, I would upgrade the Courtyard into Anvil because it's at least a poor man's Ironworks. It can do the job. Silver, ew, useless. And now you buy Ironworks. I would have accepted Throne Room as well because you're a little bit over terminal, so you could add a village. But I thought Ironworks was the clear best buy there. Upgrade. Please upgrade. Buy an upgrade. You have estates, you need to trash them. Upgrade. You got this. Oh, no. What? So like I did say, like Secret Passage is not a bad card in these kingdoms, but like they're buying it to the exclusion of like the cards that you need to have in your deck for Secret Passage to line up. Like you want to line up your Throne Rooms with your Ironworks with your Sheepdogs, and they have like none of those cards. So I don't know. I'm a little bit confused. So put one of the catapults back down on the bottom. I think probably you bottom deck the catapult because it's likely to collide with your Old Witch, which you'd rather play. If you didn't have another terminal coming up, I would just put it on top to play it next turn. All right, you got 5. Upgrade would be good. Second Old Witch I would not take right now because you don't have any villages yet. Ironworks would also be good at this point. I'd be totally down with the Ironworks buy here. Ironworks or upgrade, I think, are the 2 answers. Throne Room, decent 3rd place. Okay, that is a fine buy. I will accept a Throne Room buy. Here we see the problem of putting the catapult back on the top of your deck is it's doing absolutely nothing. Worse than nothing. It's taking up space alongside your Old Witch in your Courtyard. Okay, I'm playing the catapult. I don't hate this. Trash a copper, buy nothing. Trash a Courtyard. Not as much a fan of that. The Courtyard's a better card. You're not getting an attack, but okay. Please don't buy a silver. You don't need a silver. Sheepdog or Anvil would both be fine. These decks have a lot of... No, not silver. Ew. These decks have a lot of terminals and very few villages. So we've got 6 catapults, 7 courtyards, 2 old witches, and a merchant ship. How many is that? Or I said 6. I meant 4 catapults plus 3 courtyards. That's 7 plus 2 old witches. So there are 10 terminals in these 2 decks for a total of 0 villages. And these are not like thick decks. Like they've been trashing pretty actively, which is good. But it means that your 10 terminals are all going to be butting heads like every single turn. And so it is beyond village time. I like TSchuf's at least got a throne room. Throne room can help with this problem. Elboy is just filling the deck with terminal collision. Ooh, yeah, probably just double trash the coppers. Seems right. Sheepdog, Anvil. I think I'd take Sheepdog. But do you have an Ironworks yet? I don't even remember if TSchuf has an Ironworks. No, they don't. Elboy has all Ironworks. You need an Ironworks. That was, yeah, okay, they're gonna do it. If you gain a rocks, which is not a treasure, sorry, it is a treasure, it is not an action, then you get +1 coin, but not +1 action, which means you can't play the rest of these. So they don't need, why do you even have the merchant ship? We don't plan on playing it. I would have gained 2 actions, like gain 2 throne rooms and then play your merchant ship and buy, you could buy the rocks if you wanted, but I mean, you shouldn't want that because your deck is not under control, so why are you adding silvers? Alright. Play the Anvil, gain a throne room, buy upgrade would be good here. Citygate would also actually not be bad here. For, again, like just big concern with these decks is just initially kicking off. Well, in the theoretical world, they have actual draw cards. And so Citygate gives you a little bit of reliability there. It's not like super important. It's not like a power card or anything, but like for the same reason I want Secret Passage more than usual here, I think Citygate could be a thing worth buying at some point. Put the catapult on bottom, one of them. Again, I don't think you're going to be able to play both of them this shuffle because you're probably playing Old Witch. If you're putting it somewhere, definitely don't put it on the top 2 cards of your deck because you're about to draw those with your Secret Passage. If TSchuf adds an Ironworks right now, I think they would be in a winning position. They put the they top deck the copper for some. Why would you top deck? I don't get that. Okay. So you put the catapult back on the bottom of your deck, you play the other catapult, you buy Ironworks, you're golden. Then you start gaining more Ironworks and then some throne rooms and sheepdogs, and then we're going places. Ironworks, you got this. Ironworks, Ironworks, Ironworks. You can do it. You want to gain things, don't you? Look, your opponent's got 3 Ironworks. Aren't you jealous? Don't you want some of your own? You're going to do it. Ironworks. I believe in you. Ironworks. Ironworks. No, not rocks. Definitely not rocks. That's the worst answer of all the 4 costs. What are you doing with... Oh, man. So, Elboy needs throne rooms. Elboy should buy a throne room. I wouldn't hate Old Witcher upgrade either, but throne room is the thing. Nah. Or we could buy merchant ship. I don't know why we bought merchant ship. But now I get 2 merchant ships. I guess you got to maintain duration balance. It's a very important thing. But you could also maintain duration balance by just trashing the merchant ship that's in your deck because you don't need it. Alright, buying Province. Province is worth 6 points. Dominate is worth 15 points. 15 is a lot more than 6. You can buy 1 thing per turn. Would you rather spend 1 turn getting 6 points or 1 turn getting 15 points? Personally, I prefer 15 points. I know, people might differ on that, but That's just a me thing. I like having 15 points more than I like having 6 points. Second Old Witch. No, you still need an Ironworks. Buy an Ironworks. You got this. Ironworks. 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 It's not. You're gonna tone for the. No. Elboy has set a bad example, and TSchuf has succumbed to peer pressure. I need 3 merchant ships. Okay, so I don't think Dominate's happening in this game. I hate to say it. This might just be we're buying provinces the old-fashioned way. What? Rocks is gonna pile. Why is Rocks gonna pile? Why is Rocks even visible? So they're violating the very basic principles of Dominion. So step 1 in most games is going to be get deck control. The previous games, understandable that they didn't, because those were like pretty weak kingdoms. Like we saw, like there was the gear bank thing that you could have built, but like horde money looked totally fine and competitive given the lack of trashing. And then there was the like advisor way of the ox storeroom thing, which like you could maybe build but like not super important. So like both of those kingdoms are like actually exceptionally passable money kingdoms. This is not. This is your standard Dominion kingdom where you got to build an engine to have a chance of winning. I mean this board could rock, but that the board rocking would not involve the card rocking. This is a very standard kingdom. You got all the stuff you need. You got gains, you got draw, you got actions, you got trashing. And so in a kingdom like this one, step 1, get deck control. You want to get thin. Then step 2 is now you start adding your payload and you're seeing the payload that you added every turn. TSchuf was actually getting pretty thin. Like they thinned pretty aggressively, as I recall. I like the courtyard upgrade open. They added a catapult. They were playing it a lot. That was all going smoothly. And then they reached the point where they needed to start gaining things. Like, all right, you're getting towards deck control. Now you add gains, and then you start ramping up your engine. That involved getting an Ironworks and then adding additional engine components. Rather than buying 1 card per turn, you play a few Ironworks per turn and buy a thing. Now you're adding 4 cards per turn. You're escalating much more quickly. They never added the Ironworks. They started buying all sorts of random stuff, merchant ship and rocks and stuff. Elboy never really got deck control because I feel like they haven't been thinning all that aggressively. Like they added merchant ship, which is a terminal stop card, so slowing down your deck, rather than upgrade, which is thinning your deck. Or Old Witch, which is it kind of equivalent. It doesn't thin you, but it adds a draw for you, and it junks your opponent. So helps you get deck control, and adding draw hurts their deck control because you're junking them. Old Witch and Upgrade, both super strong cards. By contrast, Merchant Ship, a egregiously terrible card. And like these decks just kind of generally like falling apart because they're full of silvers and golds. They have no hope of drawing their decks because they just like started adding all sorts of treasures, which is not a good idea. If TSchuf had any semblance of gains here, they could just run down the the Secret Passage pile. But they don't have gains, and so they can't do that. Okay, Duchy it is, I guess. Don't understand it. That's just what we're doing here. As TSchuf, I'm looking at, I've got a short-term points lead. I want to cause a 3. Oh my god, did Elboy just buy a secret passage? The game, this is terrible. This is a huge mistake here. So, you're behind by 11 points. Now, there are 7 provinces left. So if the game comes down to provinces, you've got time to catch up. Especially given these decks. Those provinces are not going anywhere anytime fast. By contrast, This fella showed up like 40 minutes late and is now dipping early. Like, okay, whatever. Anyways, by contrast, you can lose on a 3-pile ending. Catapult was empty. Curses were inevitably going to empty, and they did just empty. What's the next lowest pile? Well, by a large margin, that secret passage is. If you lower this pile, you are severely shortening the timer that you have to catch up. TSchuf, on any non-$8 hand, can just buy secret passage. They got an upgrade, so they could upgrade a 3 into secret passage. They could empty this pile in like 2 turns pretty easily. And so helping them lower this pile is actively hurting you a lot. So close. A dominate would have actually really saved the game for Elboy, because then they'd be in competitive. I think they'd be tied for the lead if they bought dominate. All of a sudden, the pile out would be much less of a threat. Ooh. I don't like discarding the upgrade. Not one bit. You're not building at this point. Like, pile's imminently low. You are behind 9 points. Right now, it is all about scoring. You don't need to play these ironworks. You don't, no, wow. Are you just committing suicide? What is happening? Oh, if you wanted to resign, you can just click the resign button. That didn't make... What? Okay, I guess. Well, I mean, I guess that's the match. A little anticlimactic. But that's iLeague.